on the artists you love. And hear over 100 extra channels filled with ad-free music for every mood or occasion. Get your first 6 months of our Platinum plan for only $8.33 per month, plus fees and taxes. Just call 844-711-8800 to take advantage of this amazing offer.
Stars was born on SoundCloud.
What's up? This is Cash Cocaine.
It's Lil Tyler.
Still no baby.
Stay connected to what's popping online.
Now. Let's get it.
With the Sirius XM channel, where new hip hop is always on.
SoundCloud Radio.
Yeah, clear the runway, because we about to take off on SoundCloud Radio.
Listen in the car or at home with your Sirius XM app.
Looking for a unique point of view on pro sports game analysis? Then tune in to Big Z Sports Podcast on iHeartRadio. Get real sports talk worldwide. Miss a live episode? Replay it on demand on the iHeartRadio app. Join Big C, former NFL player and longtime award-winning radio broadcaster, covering all sports including NFL, NBA, MLB, UFC, NCAA, USL, and more. Tune in live or on demand on iHeartRadio Podcast today.
There you go now.
I think I'm recording.
Oh, that's it. You gotta get
If you've been thinking about buying a home, you need to be in the zone, the home buying zone. You need a game plan to win in this great real estate market. The Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage has all your bases covered. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, purchasing your dream home, refinancing, consolidating debt, or even considering a reverse mortgage, contact the Big C team at Equity Zone Mortgage today. They have the lowest closing costs, and they'll close your loan on time, guaranteed, or they'll pay your first mortgage payment. And they even have a 3.5% purchase down payment grant that can get you into a home with little money out of your pocket. It doesn't get more clutch than that, folks. Score big on the biggest purchase of your life. Call Equity Zone Mortgage today at 1-800-772-8624. That's 1-800-772-8624. Or apply online at equityzonemortgage.com and tell them Big C sent you, as heard on the Big C Sports Podcast. This is 018-14868.
Grande Deportes, Bonjour, Vidi Vidi Vici. Let's get ready to rumble. Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton of Big C Sports. This is Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to me, and people who love the universe, and that would include you. What a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Won't you be my neighbor? Shut up, fool, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I know, but I'm trying to get the neighborhood to come together. I was nominated neighborhood spokesperson, and I think I take my job too serious. They don't like it when it's 3 o'clock in the morning, but they do like today is a beautiful Monday, September 23rd, 2024. Today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them, Nam yo renkeyo, Nam yo renkeyo, Nam yo renkeyo. And then tell them, sit you where the good Lord split you. That'll get them. I like that Buddhist chant. I'm adding that into my daily routine. One of the most significant attributes of Nichiren Buddhism is its easily accessible practice of chanting Nam Yo Renke Yo, Nam Yo Renke Yo, Nam Yo Renke Yo. It's a profound yet simple method of Buddhist practice. It's a perfect Buddhist teaching for the modern world. You know, people, sometimes we could just use more chant, and chill out. Don't be so uptight when your neighbors try to bring everybody together, even though it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I understand. I want to say with the Big C Sports Podcast, my goodness, I got some college football. I want to bring you some big games. USC got robbed. They know what it's like to be the Pac-12 now because they robbed the Pac-12 when they left, took the most marquee program out of the Pac-12 and moved it to the Midwest. And they got that Midwest treatment. They had double the penalties called against them that Michigan had. All fair and level war. face mask. What do you mean face mask? All I did was pull his face mask. That's what they said in the Big Ten Conference. A lot of things went against them, but it was tough. You know, I even took my licking. I took my licking because I thought USC was going to go back there and win. But I misunderstood and misunderestimated the power of the Big Ten Conference. I should have known something when they had 18 schools. All's fair and level war, but I'll take my butt whipping. All's fair and level war. And then some NFL football. I was wrong. I was wrong on half of my picks. Something must have been up to that full moon. I should have known I spent too much time staring at the full moon. I spent too much time staring at the full moon. It kind of threw me off. At the same time, man, the Niners lost. The Raiders lost. The Saints lost. Man, a lot of good old boys lost that were favored to win. Las Vegas, they never lose because they bet both sides. 800 Gambler. If you bet both sides, 800 Gambler. I want to say with the Big C Sports Podcast, got 2 NFL games tonight. Why would they have 2 games on a Monday? Can't they all just play on a Sunday? But they decided to have 2 more games tonight on Monday. That doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm not the one who writes the rules. Cincinnati and Washington, and then Jacksonville and Buffalo. That's what the NFL decides to do because they got to get more money. They're playing a game when people are still at work. I said they're playing a game when people are still at work. That doesn't make any sense to me, but they're the ones. Good, I have a snooze button. No, not snooze, a sneeze button. I've been dealing with allergies today, so every now and then I might hit that snooze button. I mean sneeze button. They're the same. Achoo! See what happens if I don't have a... Why you have a sneeze button? They say because achoo! People don't want to hear that stuff. That's why I have a sneeze button. But the NFL is playing more games because they make more money. More money. I want to say with Big C Sports Podcast, I always focus on reparations because I believe I'm going to be the first show that says 1 small step for man, 1 giant leap for mankind. Reparations now, reparations forever. And then we can all be happy that we please God because God doesn't put up with shenanigans, if that makes sense to you. I want to say I've always produced the show. I direct the topics. I broadcast all the shows. I do all the sound effects based on the platform provided by the agency. And then, as I'm telling you, the commercials are done. The stats are provided. I do the storytelling, and then I do the play-by-play. 1st and 10, 50-yard line, 49ers, 4 wideouts, 5-man front by the Rams. Brock Purdy under center, the snap rolling to his right, rolling, throws downfield. The ball is caught for the touchdown. Touchdown! Niners! Big C! 50 yards! You know, the Niners were up in that game over the Rams, and they let him off the hook. You want to crown him? Crown him! The late, great Dennis Green said, we let him off the hook. You want to crown him? Crown him! You don't want to be bucked by a Ram. It's not a good feeling. Believe me, it's not a good feeling when a Ram hits you in your assets, if that makes sense to you. You don't want a Ram to hit you in your assets. 49ers found out the hard way. Oh, my goodness. And then I tell you, the show's uploaded to 29 podcast applications out of New York City and streaming on 4 TV platforms. Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. And then, as I say, I never miss a show. I'm launching Big C Sports TV. It's going to happen. This stuff works, man. Lightning strike. But I tell you, when you start doing things, shenanigans set in, and some I ain't even going to speak negative. I just got to keep going positive. All's fair and level where God is my source. God is my source. I want to say thank you to Xfinity, Comcast TV, and Comcast Spotlight Effect TV for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like in Genesis 1:3, what God said, reparations now, reparations forever. And then God said, let there be light, and let there be light with Big C Sports shown all over the world. Really do appreciate that. I want to make sure that does start on time is the Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help. We all feel like we have this freedom, the land of the free and the home of the brave. But not everybody's brave. Our military veterans are brave. They put their lives on the line to help a lot of us. And sometimes we just say thank you for your service. But there's times when people go through issues with the Big C team. I give you a hotline to call. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And when you do, you want to give it some praise, because we all need somebody to lean on. And especially when somebody's leaning back, it's always good when somebody's leaning back. I got a lot of stuff to get into today, and I hope I can get it all in. You ever want to get it all in? Remember that lady, that TV commercial back in the 80s? She said, Big C, where's the beef? I'm trying to get it all in. But I tell you, I've been changing my diet. I've been eating a lot of nuts. What you been eating, Big C? Walnuts. I've been eating a lot of walnuts. That stuff goes in, and then it comes out. Me like this strike. When it comes out, I'm just trying to get this extra. I want to get that leanness back in my body that I used to have when I was 19. 19. Of course, everybody has leanness at 19. Not everybody, but I'm trying to get that leanness back when I was 19. So sometimes, you can't. You just got to be careful. You got to make sure you're not too far in the long drive. Oh, Lord have mercy. I'm glad I got a sneeze button. I heard they call the snooze button. I was wrong. My goodness. I was telling my brother, who lives in Dimder Hills down south, that the USC Trojans, they were going to go into Ann Arbor and whip up on some of those Wolverines. But no one ever said they were going to Jurassic Park. Those Wolverines, they were like pterodactyl Wolverines. Jurassic Park! That's where the Trojans went. And I think they got robbed by those Big 10 or Big 18 officials, whatever you call them. You see the size of those fangs on that Jurassic Park? No wonder they had an electric fence around Jurassic Park, because those Wolverines, my goodness, how you throw for 32 yards and you win a game over USC? It's called referees. What? It's called referees. That game was a welcome to the Big 10 or the Big 18, and no one can tell me wrong, because I know some good old boys that said, man, wasn't that a face mask? Face mask? Wasn't that a pass interference? Pass interference? Come on, guys. There's the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, and I gotta come to grips with it, and I know better. In fact, someone was saying at least the black coach won. I said, yeah, the black coach won. And he's getting Lincoln Riley make 3 times his money. But it's all fair level where life is what it is. But I want to say, I have a guide to protect, preserve, and transfer wealth, and I'm gonna have a quiz, so pay attention. Are you ready? Set, go. A guide to protect, preserve, and transfer wealth. Resource Development Consulting, Inc., in conjunction with the law office of Scott Thibodeau, attorney at law, and the law office of attorney George Jones, Esquire, the missing link, long-term care solutions by the book, over 3 decades of experience helping seniors get their benefits. Medicare and You is taking care of tomorrow. In California, it's called Medi-Cal. In other parts of the country, it's called Medicaid. Your family and spouse can avoid the spin down for nursing home costs. You can find out your options are promised to you. You got to call 800-772-8624. 800-772-8624. 800-772-8624. And tell them Big C sent you. Our promise to you, specialized to navigate and maximize long-term care benefits, protection of your assets without the spin down. And that's what a lot of NFL quarterbacks needed over the weekend. I told you, if you pay attention to the Big C team and my commercial on asset protection, a lot of NFL quarterbacks, they understand what I mean. If they don't get protection, they'll be trying to throw the ground off their assets. You got to have asset protection, called a good offensive line protection of your assets without the spin down. Is over in California. Now, all paperwork and communication with all government agencies are handled by our staff of entitlement specialists. We have ongoing consulting to provide updates as necessary, and then benefits covering skilled nursing facilities, medical prescriptions, medical equipment costs, and more. But not only that, protection of your assets. Hut 1, Hut 2, asset protection. Brock Purdy needed some asset protection going against that Rams defense. What did he need, Missy? He needed some asset protection. That's what he needed. It protects that, including your home, thereby allowing you to leave a legacy for your family, avoiding the nightmare debt brought by the government's estate recovery program called probate. I was talking to some good old boys, some lawyers. These are AV-rated lawyers, Martindale Hubbell attorneys, and they said, Big C, would you believe that 7 out of 10 Americans do not have a will and a trust? I said, oh, you must be out of your mind. They said, no, seriously. 7 out of 10 Americans do not have a will and a trust. That means that at the end of your life, the probate, they will have a will for you, and you will not like it. But he also said 7 out of 10 Americans, they have cable TV. Which line would you stand in? Especially if you're a business owner. If you're a business owner and you don't have a will and a trust, no matter what you have, you know probate's going to take your stuff, and they're going to pay out their lawyers and the court costs and everybody you owe money to. And then whatever's left over, they may have something to give to the ones that you love. If you love them enough to have a will and a trust, that's a fact. A one-time processing fee versus monthly insurance premiums for the rest of your life. I'm not done yet talking about asset protection. I gotta tell you, it's important. It should be important to you too. What is asset protection, BC? Well, with the RDC team, we provide insurance coverage required by law, general liability, workers' compensation, lawyers specializing in living trust, Medicaid or Medi-Cal planning for long-term care, avoid probate, life insurance policies, veterans benefits, aid and attendance, pre-planning, and avoid the look-back period. What about fixed assets, BC? Does the trust protect that? I'm glad you asked, because the trust also protects your bank account, your checking account, your savings account, your money market account, certificates of deposit, life insurance with cash values, fixed indexed annuities. What about variable assets, Big C? I'm glad you asked. A trust protects your real estate, your qualified money, your IRAs, your 401ks, and other investments. For example, avoid capital gains. How we do that, Big C? Let's say you buy a house for $100,000, and then 1 year later that house appreciates to $1 million, according to some real estate brokers that want to make that sell. Well, that's a $900,000 capital gains. In 1 year? Well, just listen to the story. A $900,000 capital gain, you avoid that if your property is in a trust. Attention business owners. Attention business owners. Over 3 decades of experience, you got to find out your other options to protect what your insurance does not cover. That's important. I want to give a shout out to LSE Architects and Mohammed Lawal. Talked to him over the weekend about LSE Architects Incorporated. Really bright man. Looking forward to doing some collaborating with him on business. But any company out there, you want to get a quote for your insurance? All we need is a copy of your declaration page. Call 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. Just tell them Big C sent you. Now, I got to tell you, when people say, well, why don't we work with you, Big C? I got a friend and he also does trust. That's a good question. Does your friend have endorsements? Like the high school cheerleaders say, we have endorsements. Yes, we do. We have endorsements. How about you? That's a song that cheerleaders used to sing when I was in high school, and it's applicable to business now. Our endorsements are the late James Gomez, who advised 4 California governors and led change in California nursing homes. He was the CEO of the California Association of Health Facilities. He also served on Golden One's board of directors for 21 years. But not only that, we have the late Robert Carlson. He was the top legal counsel for CalPERS. He endorsed the RDC team. But not only that, we have more references. We have attorney George Jones, Esquire. He's the chair of the California Black Chamber of Commerce, also the California Black Chamber of Commerce Foundation. He endorses the RDC. We have attorney Scott Thibodeau, one of the top estate planners in Northern California. He endorses the RDC team. We have Mr. Leon Woods, works with many of the top lobbyists in Northern California. He endorses the RDC team. We have Miss Cheryl Brown. She's the chair of the California Commission on Aging. She endorses the RDC team. That says a lot. If you have the Commission on Aging that endorses your program, doesn't that say something? That says a lot more than your friend down the street. Now, but not only that, we have Mr. Ray De La Cruz, the CEO of Resource Development Consulting Inc., been doing his thing over 34 years and counting. But not only that, we have Alex De La Cruz. He's the founder of American Veteran Benefits. He endorses the RDC team. But not only that, we have Big C, business development consultant with the RDC team. Also, co-chair of the National Black Wall Street Project. I endorse the RDC team, but not only that, owner of Big C Sports Podcast Corporations, the #1 sports show in the universe. I endorse the RDC team. But not only that, we have Double O. She's the payout committee for the National Black Wall Street Project. Also, business development consultant with the RDC team. But not only that, has her own economics awareness talk show called Let's Eat. You can Google it on Access Sacramento. Also, KUBU 96.5 FM in private.net. You got to give that some praise. I say give it praise, praise, praise. Everybody deserves that praise. And hopefully you'll call 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. And I know there's a lot of things going on in the world of sports. They have so many games that are being played. We have football that it seems like from sea to shining sea, and I love it. I love bringing your Big C Sports podcast. That's important to me. I love it so much, I want to even let you hear what I talked about over the weekend with sports. But there's some games happening tonight. And before I get into our sports, most of these sports leagues, they're owned by people whose ancestors received the Homestead Act. What's the Homestead Act, Big C? United States government gave white Americans over 160 acres of land to develop America. And even white Europeans, they told black Americans no. And now you have people that have bequeathed wealth from generation to generation. A lot of them have ownership of professional sports teams. They didn't give us that chance. That's important because we also, as African Americans, deserve ownership of the leagues that we make billions of dollars for. That's important. I want you to hear the #1 speaker in the history of the country to ever talk about reparations, and listen with your heart, mind, body, and soul.
Martin Luther King spoke to this sometime back in the early 60s, and I thought this was a really interesting quote. Here it is.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with. And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
And that's what I talk about with reparations. I want Dr. King to always be on the top of the mind for people who believe in liberty and justice for all. Liberty and justice for all. And that's what I bring you with Big C Sports. Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Now, back by popular demand. Are you ready for some football? Yeah! I love bringing that up to you. NFL predictions, Big C Space. Got some NFL Monday Night Football tonight. Why they're playing 2 games on Monday? Because of more money, more money, more money. I heard that in the movie. It was called Beverly Hills Cop. And that's what it was. I think that's the Wayans. Damon Wayans said that. But the close of NFL football week 3, 2 Monday Night Football games. And we've covered you with NFL predictions. I gave you that all last week. I was really off on my predictions last week. I beg your pardon. 800 gambler if you're off. And then the Jaguars and the Bills tonight. And the Washington Commanders and the Cincinnati Bengals. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they're 0-2. They face the Buffalo Bills. They're 2-0. Now in a real fight, a Jaguar would probably maul a Bill if it snuck up on the backside. That game tip-off already on ESPN. Kickoff is at 7:30 p.m. East Coast time at Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York. And then after that game, the Washington Commanders, they are 1-1. They will face the Cincinnati Bengals 0-2 on ABC at 8:15 p.m. Kickoff East Coast time. So both games are already on the way, and that's at Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati, Ohio. The Jaguars and Bengals, they're in desperate win mode. They got to get a win. I want winners. I want people who want to win. It's almost impossible to start 0-3 and then turn that into a playoff berth. The Bills are a 4.5-point favorite, 800 gambler, over the Jacksonville Jaguars. 4.5 points is a lot for an NFL football game, with the over-under set at 46.5. The Bengals are a 7.5-point favorites over the Washington Commanders, and they are a 7.5-point favorite over the over-under is 46.5. When you think about some of the great players, there's some great quality quarterbacks tonight. Trevor Lawrence, who's playing the good old boy that played at Clemson. He never lost a game in high school. Never lost a game in high school. Can you believe that? And now he was almost undefeated at Clemson, but they did lose a national championship game at Clemson. But in the NFL, it hasn't been as easy for him. And then you have Josh Allen, who played college football at the University of Wyoming. Prior to that, he played at Kings River College down near Fresno, California, a town called Reedley, out of a small town called Fireball, California, which has some of the best fishing that you can find if you like fishing in canals, if that makes sense to you. And then Jaden Daniels grew up in Southern California, played at Arizona State, and then he went to LSU. He became a Heisman Trophy winner and a first-round draft pick by the Washington Commanders. He looks to impress his fellow LSU alum, the great Joe Burrow, who also played at LSU. But tonight, it's about desperation. If you ever felt desperate as an NFL football team, you can go and look at tonight's game, where a lot of people feel that all the teams are desperate. But I got to tell you, in my opinion, if you have a team in the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, they're trying to put Josh Allen in the pantheon with it's just my opinion, they want to put him up there with Joe Burrow, who's been to the Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford's been to the Super Bowl. At the same time, touchdown Patrick Mahomes better than all of them. In the pantheon with Dak Prescott, and then Lamar Jackson. A lot of great players haven't been to the Super Bowl. Jared Goff, he's been to the Super Bowl, but he's not as great a quarterback, in my opinion, as Josh Allen. Josh Allen's a run-pass option, but it just hasn't worked for them yet. But they're off to a strong start this year. Now, Trevor Lawrence signed that huge contract, but hasn't really owned up to it yet. And people say, well, is the quarterback when they win? Is the team when they lose? No matter what it is, good players all around. And then when I look at Washington, Daniels can be the new Lamar Jackson, in my opinion, a run-pass option, can throw the ball downfield. Jaden has so much of that Donovan McNabb look to him when he plays. He has a strong arm, run-pass option, makes good decisions, but he needs some time to mature at the NFL level. That's my story. I'm taking with it. And then Joe Burrow has a hitch in his giddy-up, but did take the Bengals to the Super Bowl where they lost to the Rams a couple of years ago. And obviously, there's always a lot of talk about, can you do it again? Can they get back there? They're in a tough division. Pittsburgh is rolling. I'll get into the NFL a little bit later, but I got to get my thoughts tonight is Buffalo's going to win that game. Now, the Washington Commanders, obviously, when you look at them, they're rebuilding. It's going to take them some time to get where they should be. And at the same time, Cincinnati, they're 0-2, but they're a lot better than 0-2. And Washington coming in there to play them, I think Washington's overmatched. And that's why the Bengals are a 7.5-point favorite. I got to go with Cincinnati in that game. That's my opinion. The Jaguars and the Buffalo Bills. Now, depending on what point spread is 5.5, the over-under is 45.5. If you're up in Buffalo, it's tough to win. Josh Allen, Sean McDermott, the Bills, their willingness to put teams away, they don't let up even when playing from ahead. They continue to stay aggressive throughout the game. Unlike the 49ers, where they should maybe run the ball more, Shanahan likes to pass it. He was like that when the Falcons lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl about a decade ago. You got to have a run game to run the clock. That's my opinion. But last week we saw that they dominated the Miami Dolphins 31-10. It's been a hallmark of theirs for years now, and it makes it much easier for a team like that to cover a 5.5-point spread. And I think they'll get that done against the Good Boys from Jacksonville. Buffalo's a better team. They're not going to let up tonight, and that's my story. I'm sticking with it. May lightning strike! That's my story. I'm sticking with it. Now I got to take you to the weekend. The weekend for NFL football, it was just not my weekend. I tell you, I felt like I fell for the banana. I felt like the banana in the tailpipe. What your tailpipe, BC? I said I fell for the banana in the tailpipe. That's the great Eddie Murphy. Beverly Hills Cop. A lot of my picks were wrong. I tell you, I was right about the New York Jets touchdown Aaron Rodgers. I'm telling you, on Thursday night, threw for 281 yards. The Jets are now 2-1 on the season, and that's my straight up ticket with it. But early on Sunday, the Pittsburgh Steelers, we got a feeling the Steelers are going to the Super Bowl. Not so fast, my friend, the great Lee Corso. But the Steelers, they downed the Los Angeles Chargers, and they were behind in that game. But they started playing real good football. The Chargers, Herbert has a little hitch in his giddy up with his ankle, but you got to give the Steelers and Mike Thomas some credit. He's never had a losing season. This will not be the one that he has a losing season. And then the Philadelphia Eagles, the defense handled the New Orleans Saints. Who that say? They gonna beat them Saints. The Eagles said they're gonna beat them Saints. What a great game by touchdown, Jalen Hurts. They went into that loud, crazy dome down in Nolans. They call it Nolans, and they got a close win, but a win is a win. I want winners. I want people who want to win, and they got the win, and that's all that counts. And then Bo Nix. Who would have thought that Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos would go in to Raymond James Stadium and beat touchdown Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I didn't, but they did, and they got the win, and they earned it. Later, Andy Dalton and the Carolina Panthers. How about those Panthers? They put on a show, and they beat the Raiders of Las Vegas. What? Yeah, they beat the Raiders. It was a blowout. The Raiders scored a couple of times late to bring it a little closer. It was a blowout, and nobody saw it coming. And now there's a lot of talk about, should Andy Dalton be the starting quarterback? Of course he should, because you just got to play the guys who are hot. And in my opinion, if he can help them play like that, or was it a typical Raider letdown? That's the thing. Bryce Young, people say, well, he was in over his head. I don't think he's in over his head, just not the right system. I think Bryce Young should look at the Miami Dolphins. If they're talking about trading him, go play with the Miami Dolphins, similar in stature to Tua Tagovailoa, played in the same system at Alabama. And obviously he has the talent. You just need the right system. But Dalton looked good. It was one game, and it was the Raiders. The Raiders they thought they were playing the Baltimore Ravens. How do you have a letdown like that at home when you're a favorite after coming from behind double digits and beat the Baltimore Ravens? And then how about those Rams? A Ram, you gotta have asset protection, because when the Rams running after your assets, you got to make sure you have asset protection. And the Niners had them down, but you couldn't keep a good Ram down. Does that make sense, Jim? They pulled off an impressive comeback, and they beat the 49ers. These are not your Joe Montana 49ers. They came back and beat them on a field goal. Shanahan has not learned how to run the ball when they have a lead. I don't know what it is, but if you have a team like the Rams, and everybody was hurt, but they came back and got a big win, a game where they didn't have the best receivers. The 49ers are also injured. In fact, running back touchdown Christian McCaffrey, he's supposed to be in Germany getting another opinion about the injury that he's dealing with. Be careful of what happens when you're in Germany. You got to go over there to get help. And we got supposedly the best medical doctors in the United States. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. But good win by the Rams. They were beaten up, but they came back and won that game. Maybe Shanahan will run the ball more often when he has a lead. On Sunday night, the Kansas City Chiefs, they held off touchdown Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons. What a game down in Atlanta. It went neck and neck, but at the end of the day, the Chiefs were able to beat the Dirty Birds in Atlanta. So Kansas City 22, Atlanta Falcons 17. What happened to the big play of the Chiefs? They emphasized is heavily during the offseason and training camp, but had just one play, more than 17 yards. They don't look as good as they looked last year when they won a Super Bowl championship. Against the Falcons, they made it work to an extent, piecing together a number of smaller games to build some long drives. But they finally got the win, and that's what you want out of touchdown Patrick Mahomes. You got to get a win, and they did it on the road, so I give them credit for that. But they don't look as good as they looked last year at the end of the season. But we'll see what happens. The next game up at the Chargers. The Falcons, the loss of 2 offensive linemen, how will that affect the Falcons offense? And then you look at some of the Falcons, can it accumulate in large chunks with big plays from big-time players like Drake London and Thailand Kyle Pitts? But when it's not feasting, this famine, especially on third. They were 3 of 17 over the past 2 weeks. The loss of center Drew Dolman and right tackle Caleb McGarry, that's tough on the Atlanta Falcons. It's going to be hard for them to get on track without those 2 guys. I got to look at something happening. A stat for Cousins. He's tied for the 4th fastest quarterback to reach 40,000 passing yards. Only 153 games. Only Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford, and Drew Brees have gotten there faster. Dan Marino did it in 153 games. Also want to just say thoughts and prayers to the loss of Mercury Morris, the former Miami Dolphins great. That team that went undefeated back in 72. Thoughts and prayers with his family. But back to these quarterbacks. Dan Marino did it 153 games. Meanwhile, Cousins, he did surpass Joe Montana in career passing touchdowns, 274. But that's my story. I'm taking with it. Next game, the Saints. Baltimore 28. Dallas Cowboys 25. How about those Cowboys? How about those Cowboys? Did the Ravens revive their season? The Ravens avoided the second 0-3 start in team history, but they did not inspire confidence in how they finished. For the first 3 weeks, they looked like they were the better team, but they lost those games. They looked like the better team against Dallas, and it looked like they were going to lose that game. But they used Superman Lamar Jackson, and they pulled out a win. They looked like a Super Bowl contender with Superman Lamar Jackson running for a touchdown, untouched and touchdown. Derrick Henry, he stepped on tackles. He has a great commercial with State Farm where he's pulling everything on his backside, if that makes sense to him. In the fourth quarter, it was the same problems for the Ravens. A bad defense, undisciplined penalties. Baltimore has to improve, especially because Pittsburgh is playing so great. And Cincinnati's not that far behind. They just need a win to get on the right track, so they got to keep playing better. In another word, the Ravens have a problem with finishing off teams. A week after failing to hold a 10-point fourth quarter lead and a loss to the Raiders, Baltimore nearly let a 22-point lead slip through their hands against the Dallas Cowboys. But a win is a win, and I want winners. I want people who want to win. The great Jerry Jones says that, as well as Michael Singletary said that back in the day. Next game, Buffalo Bills. The Cowboys, I feel bad for Jerry Jones. What do you do with all that money? All that money, you can't buy a win. At least the Dallas Cowboys, they put up a fourth quarter fight against the Baltimore Ravens. But seeing the Giants on a short week, it might be the exact thing that the Cowboys need. Both teams are 1-2 in their wins against Cleveland. But quarterback touchdown Dak Prescott has $60 million. I want that money. I want $60 million. And he gets that every year for the next 4 years. He's won 12 straight against the Giants. The only thing the Cowboys can count on at the moment is their kicker, Brandon Avery, who set a team record with a 65-yard field goal. The defense has allowed 190 and 274 rushing yards in the past 2 weeks. It's not Dak Prescott's fault. And I know some of those good boys down in the Dallas media, they want to blame touchdown Dak Prescott, who last I checked does not play defense for the Cowboys. That's my story. I'm taking with it. That next game at the Giants on Thursday night. At the same time, you got to realize Detroit Lions, the Arizona Cardinals, I picked Arizona to win because the Cardinals against the Rams, they played like they were Jurassic Park Cardinals, like they were pterodactyls. And of course, a pterodactyl could beat a lion, but this is a different breed of lion. Detroit went into the desert and beat Arizona 20-13. Quarterback Jared Goff, he cut down on the turnovers. He entered the game. Goff said he needed to be more disciplined, and he was on target for most of the night, completing 18 of 23 passes for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, but was intercepted by Dennis Garrett in the third quarter. He avoided narrowly another pick six. But at the same time, you play to win, and they got it done. I was surprised to see that the Lions went into Arizona and did to Arizona what Arizona was trying to do to the LA Rams just a week earlier. For the Lions, rookie cornerback Terran Arnold, drafted 24th, was flagged for his 4th defensive pass interference call of the season while defending wide receiver Michael Wilson in the second quarter. No other player in the league has more than 2 such penalties. It's not his fault. Sometimes officials don't like you. And that's my story. And I'm taking with it next game Monday versus the Seahawks. The Cardinals, how do you deal with it? After putting up 35 points and 380 yards per game in the first 2 weeks, the Cardinals offense fell back on earth like they had their wings clipped. You ever see a Cardinal fall from the sky? Not a funny sight, but still, they had their wings clipped. I gotta tell you, I was not expecting that. I was ready to jump on the Kyler Murray bandwagon, and then the Lions decided. You ever see a Wild Kingdom where a lion just eats a cardinal? Well, that's what it looked like down in the desert. Arizona had just one play of at least 10 yards in the second and third quarters, while scoring just 3 points in the process. You can't win a game that way. Maybe they left it all on the line when they played the Rams just the week before, but that's not good for an NFL football team to go from scoring 35 points a game to being blown out like that at home. That's my story. I'm taking with it. Next game versus the Commanders on Sunday. The Rams 27, the 49ers 24. What happened? That's what they're asking in the Bay Area. Coach Shanahan, what happened? Did the Rams come back and save their season after the Rams fell to 0-2? For the first time under head coach Sean McVay, the coach emphasized that there was plenty of football left to be played on the season. In this week, the LA Rams, they orchestrated a fourth quarter comeback. Don't call it a comeback, the great LL Cool J against, how about those Niners? The Bang Bang Niner game, what may have turned their season around under very different circumstances. The Rams overcame a 3-6 start last season to go on a 7-1 run to make the playoffs as the NFC's number 6 seed. At the same time, the biggest hole in the game plan, defending wide receiver Juwan Jennings, the Rams defense was facing a depleted offense, but it did not seem to matter. The LA Rams gave up 3 touchdowns to Jennings, who became the first 49er receiver with 3 receiving scores in a game since Terrell Owens in 2001. The most surprising performers after running back Kyron Williams had his lowest yards per carry since becoming a starting running back last season. He scored all 3 of the Rams touchdowns against the 49ers defense. What happened? A lot of people are saying what happened. Next game at the Bears. And then the 49ers, they're 1-2. It's called a Super Bowl hangover. Where the teams that lose a Super Bowl, they usually have a hard time getting back to the playoffs the next year. I'm not going to count them out. It's early this season. It's a trying week for the 49ers, who ended Sunday without injured star running back Christian McCaffrey, who's now over in Germany because they don't have enough good doctors in the United States, apparently. And then he has that Achilles tendonitis. Wide receiver Deebo Samuel has a calf issue. Tight end George Kittle, he has a hamstring. It's like the Brady Bunch. They're all banged up right now, and we haven't even played 3 games. Now, what do? They still lost to an equally, if not more, depleted Rams team because the continued defensive and special teams issues. Samuels and Kittle should be back soon, but nothing is going to come easy for the Niners. And Shanahan refuses to run the football when they have a lead. He wants to keep passing it. He did that when he was offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons, and they lost in the Super Bowl to the New England Patriots. Juwan Jennings, with so many stars missing, Jennings was an obvious candidate to help fill the void, but nobody could have expected the outburst he provided. He was a focal point of the passing game all day, setting career highs and catches 1,175 yards and 3 touchdowns. So you can't blame him. If they run the ball more and don't fall for a fake punt, just get the ball back. Doesn't make any sense to me. But it's called the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. Next game versus New England Patriots on Sunday. And then the Seahawks, they're no longer sleepless in Seattle, 24-3 over the Miami Dolphins. Will injuries slow the Seahawks' hot start? The Mike McDonald era is off to a 3-0 start. Pete Carroll. Oh, Pete Carroll. But the Seahawks are about to enter a tough stretch with key injuries. They're down to their third option at right tackle with George Fant on injured reserve. Abe Lucas not expected to come off the physically unable to perform list anytime soon. And they could get running back Kenneth Walker III and outside linebacker Uchenna Nwosu back. But they lost defensive lineman Leonard Williams with rib injuries. And then Byron Murphy II with a hamstring on Sunday. My goodness. They have a tough string of quarterbacks to face. They're going to face over the next 6 weeks. Brock Purdy, 49ers. Matthew Stafford, the Rams. Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills. My goodness. The Seahawks are 3-0. They were expected to compete for 4th place with Arizona. This is about the 49ers, the Rams, and Seahawks. The Seahawks are 3-0 right now. They lead the NFC West. I got to tell you, what a great team they're looking to be. The Seahawks committed 11 penalties and went 2 quarters without scoring a point. But they're able to beat down the Miami Dolphins. You got to say that's an impressive win, even though they did not play that well. But the Seattle, they're going to build their offensive game plan around some quick throws, some screens, and some rollouts. And I'm really impressed with the way they won that game so easily over the Miami Dolphins. At the same time, next, at the Lions. In a real fight, a Seahawk would not have any chance against a Lion, especially in a Lion's den. But this is a different type of Seahawk. It's like the Jurassic Park Seahawks, and they might have a win over the Lions. We will see. Can't wait to see that game. And then the Dolphins, don't know what to say about the Dolphins. They just have, once Tua Tagovailoa went down, they haven't been the same. The Miami signed Tyler Huntley last week, and while he was inactive Sunday, might have stepped into a starting role with Tua being out. All fair and level war. I feel for Miami again. Murphy Morris passed away. He was part of the only undefeated football team in NFL history with the 72 Dolphins. Thoughts and prayers with his family. Next game, the Tennessee Titans. Carolina 36, the Raiders 22. What? How'd that happen? Andy Dalton is how it happened. Bryce Young most likely would be looking at Miami. Dalton, we'll see if he can do it back-to-back, because the Raiders tend to do this. It doesn't spell the end for Young's career in Carolina, but why stay there? It was not the right system. At the same time, you got to look at what happened. The Raiders, did they lose or did Carolina win? I don't want to even look at what happened to Carolina. They went in there and won. But the most surprising part, the defense without 2 starters on the line, coming into week 3, the unit ranked 29th against the run, had given up 73 points, but the Panthers limited Las Vegas to 22 points and 55 yards on the ground. The Raiders were the worst rushing team in the league entering week 3, but this was a complete shutdown, and the Raiders fans booing their offense. My goodness, Dolphins eye-popping 31-yard touchdown pass to wide receiver Adam Thielen was his 5th completion of 20-plus yards in the first half, and that's why they won. They threw the ball down. So you want to pass it? Pass it! And they passed away into a win. Next game up against the Bengals. The Raiders, what do you say if the Raiders defense beyond subpar? Max Crosby isn't 100% apparently, as the Raiders coach Antonio Pierce said this week. And Crosby's an ultimate warrior when it comes to playing through pain. Everybody plays through pain. But the Raiders, I just don't understand what happened to them. People call it a trap game. I call it 800 gambler game, if that makes sense to you. If someone is riding high like the Raiders, you would expect them to maybe try to put together another win, especially coming back home. But they lost after beating Baltimore. I don't understand the Raiders. I just don't understand. This is not your Al Davis Raiders. There's no reason they should have lost that game. Planning for a vintage Andy Dalton, longtime coach Cincinnati Marvin Lewis is on the Raiders staff, and Dalton, who turns 37 years old next month, he started once in 2023, yet you would have thought he was a Super Bowl champion last year. I don't know what to say about the Raiders. Next game, the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland, this is for you. The New York Giants, 21. Cleveland, 15. How did that happen? The NFL was just wacky this week. The Giants needed this win in the worst way possible, even if it did not come easy. They entered Sunday 0-2, and with their next 6 games against teams with winning records last season, a win on the road against Cleveland goes a long way in helping this young team build confidence. Coach Brian Daboll has preached, focus! I want focus! And he got some focus, if that makes sense to you in the process. You got to say it's just one game. Describe the game in 2 words. Great resiliency. The Giants fumbled the opening kickoff and allowed a touchdown on the first play from scrimmage. They did not flinch. They still managed to go into halftime with a 21-7 lead by dominating on offense. Doesn't make any sense. Quarterback touchdown, Daniel Jones. The play caller, Daboll, defensive coordinator, and Shane Bourne, who surprisingly blitzed a lot, and rookie wide receiver Malik Neighbors. What a game. What a victory over Cleveland. Now, I got to tell you, next game, Thursday versus the Cowboys. Both teams need to win. I got to go with the Cowboys. Maybe. The Cleveland Browns, offensive line injuries. They just don't have some chemistry. Not the team I thought they would be. On Sunday, Cleveland lost 3 linemen, Wyatt Teller, James Hudson III, and Jedrick Wills Jr. to injuries, forcing a mass shuffling along the line. And right now, it doesn't look good. A total disappointment for the Cleveland Browns. They ended the matchup as a near touchdown favorite, but were down 14 at halftime. I'm not saying 800 gambler, but NFL was all over the place this past weekend. It doesn't make any sense. Cleveland, next game at the Raiders. That's a tough victory and a tough loss for Cleveland. Indianapolis Colts 21, Chicago Bears 16. The Bears are who we thought they were. The late great Dennis Green. The Colts' best offensive formula with Anthony Richardson making his 7th career start and being the NFL's youngest starting quarterback, the Indianapolis Colts. They seem to have found an offensive formula that acknowledges he's developing 1 week after dialing up 36 dropbacks. In a loss at Green Bay, the Colts used a much better ground attack, and running back Jonathan Taylor, 23 carries, 110 yards, got his chest in the wind. He was the focal point. This is not your Johnny Unitas Colts, but that's a good team, a young team. And I'm impressed with the way they got the win. I got to tell you, the Colts had allowed 474 rushing yards in week 1 and 2. One of the worst starts for a defense in the past 2 decades. On Sunday, the Colts limited the Bears to 2.3 yards per carry. They look good. I'm not going to jump all over them yet and see how great they are next game against the Steelers. The Bears are who we thought they were. You got to think of what's wrong with the Bears. The Colts gave up nearly 500 rushing yards to their first 2 opponents, yet the Bears attempted 52 passes. Pass it! You want to pass it? Pass it! I said the Colts, they gave up nearly 500 yards in 2 games. And the Bears threw the ball 52 times. Why? Chicago had 247 yards in the first half and was shut out in the half after. Why? What did Tanya Harding say? Why were they passing the ball so much? Chicago had 247 yards in the first half, was shut out in the second half after 4 straight runs out of the shotgun at the 4-yard line, did not yield a touchdown. Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Caleb Williams responded late with a touchdown throws to Roma Duze and then Cole Kimmett. The first 2 NFL passing touchdowns. But the question about the Bears' decision-making, why are you not running the ball against a team that gave up almost 500 yards in 2 games? Doesn't make any sense. You got to run the ball. Running back DeAndre Swift, the Bears didn't sign Swift to a 3-year, $24 million contract for the running back to average 1.5 yards per carry. After totaling 38 rushing yards against the Titans and the Texans, Swift once again received a high team in carries, 13, and it turned out just 20 yards. That's the offensive line. They got to fix that. You gotta realize they got to fix that next game versus the Rams. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. Minnesota 34, Houston, Texas 7. Houston, we have a problem. I was talking to Mohammed Lawal at LSE Architects, and he helped design U.S. Bank Stadium in Minnesota. The Vikings, through 3 weeks, the Vikings have been one of the league's best teams. They won on the road at the Giants in week 1, defeated one of the NFC's best teams in the 49ers in week 2, have now battered one of the AFC's top teams, and the Houston Texans. On Sunday, they jumped on the Texans. They did a good job showing that this is a Minnesota. This is not the Purple People Eater defense, but they're playing like it. It's been a 5-year week 15 of the 2019 season since the Vikings won a game by 24 or more points. A blitz-heavy defense, the Vikings blitzed the Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud, 16 of his 37 dropbacks on Sunday, the highest rate, 43%, he's faced thus far in his career. Of those plays, he completed 8 of 15 passes for 94 yards, including a touchdown. You got to like this Vikings defense. I'm telling you, this team is something else. They're Purple People Eaters. They look like they're back. We will see. It's not your granddaddy's Minnesota Vikings, but they look really good. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. And next, they take on the Green Bay Packers. The Texans, what they going to do? What you going to do with the Texans? The air attack looked a little bit sloppy on Sunday. Quarterback C.J. Stroud really looked comfortable against the Vikings defense. They kept blitzing and blitzing and blitzing and blitzing. In fact, the Vikings said, fire everything! They blitzed him all the time. And he threw for 215 yards with 2 interceptions and 1 touchdown. That Vikings defense, they won that game. No matter what anybody says about the quarterback, the defense won that game. Sam Darnold did great too, but the defense won that game next game versus the Jaguars. Philadelphia Eagles 15, New Orleans Saints. Who that said they're going to beat them Saints? 12. What a game that was. Nick Sirianni's decision making. He went for it on 4th and short late in the game. In the second quarter also, and early in the third, the offense did not convert either attempt, but the Eagles walked away without points in a close game. When he did opt for a field goal, it was from 60 yards out midway through the fourth quarter. Jake Elliott could not convert, and the Saints proceeded to drive for the go-ahead touchdown. The game was such a great game. You got star running back Saquon Barkley hit a maximum speed on his 21.66 mile per hour on a 65-yard rushing touchdown, where he broke left and cut it back to the right and raced to the corner of the end zone. He outran all the safeties that New Orleans had, and he's looking like he's fresh after the injury that he had a couple of years ago. But I got to tell you, this is a great team. The New Orleans Saints are a better team than they played, but the Eagles went in there and won. You got to realize how tough that was to go into New Orleans and win. Barkley was a force for the Eagles. Ended the day at 150 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. You got to give him credit. And then, touchdown Jalen Hurts, such an accurate passer, had a turnover, but came back and drove that team down the field when they needed to get it done. Alvin Kamara, they kept him in check, 3.3 yards per carry. Tight end Jalen Carter broke out a couple of quiet weeks, had a pair of pass deflections and 2 tackles for loss. The Saints did everything they could. Touchdown Derek Carr. He did the best he could. But it wasn't enough because the Eagles found a way to step up and win a big game. Late mistakes was a matchup of 2 scoring offenses, but both teams, they ran into roadblocks and failed to score until the fourth quarter. The Saints defense carried the offense early with 2 sacks, but this is about that one big run that Saquon Barkley pulled off over 60 yards, and that helped the Eagles get the win. And touchdown Jalen Hurts played a spectacular game. This is a big-time game for Philadelphia to go into New Orleans, a team that was riding high and blowing people out, and get a win. Really impressed with that next game at the Falcons. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. Denver 26, at Tampa Bay 7. Bo Nix turned the corner, and his performance after Nix struggled in the first 2 weeks, the Broncos coach Sean Payton said he was going to take a long look at his play calling. Payton's answer was to keep Bo Nix throwing it. You want to pass it? Pass it! Including penalty snaps, Nix had 26 dropbacks in the first half, mostly executing the type of snaps to throw plays that he was successful with at Oregon. Get the ball out of his hands fast, and he's a lot more effective. Tampa Bay's defense throwing for 70 pass yards on the Broncos' opening drive. Still, he showed the same hobbles in the first 2 games, but it's going to get better. You got to let him take his licks. That's just what you have to do. As one person for the Buccaneers, wide receiver Mike Evans and Broncos quarterback Patrick Surtain II. In man coverage, Surtain was in Evans' kitchen plenty during the entire game, and his stifled touchdown, Baker Mayfield couldn't have a lot of success getting to him. That's just the way it is in the NFL. You got a lockdown corner. It makes it tough for your quarterback and receivers to connect. But I'm surprised that they went in and blew out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but they did it. Next game at the Jets, my story, I'm sticking with it. You got to look at what happened to Tampa Bay. They just got beat. They got beat down, and I was surprised. The performance, the Buccaneers defense, 1 week after the unit held the Lions to just 1 touchdown on 7 red zone drives, they surrendered 216 passing yards and 45 rushing yards to Nix. That's almost indescribable that you let a rookie come in and do that to you. But that's my story. I'm sticking with it. You got to give them a lot of credit. They went in there, they had to get a win, and they got to win on the road. Next game, the Eagles. Pittsburgh 20, LA Chargers 10. You got to say, all week long, the Steelers offense reiterated that they were going to get some points on the board, and they found a way to do it. They did score a season-high 20 points with 2 field goals by Chris Boswell and a rushing touchdown by quarterback Justin Fields to go with his fourth quarter touchdown strike to Calvin Austin III. Still, the Steelers struggled to convert the red zone drives, stalled at the 10-yard line and 12-yard lines. But Fields did a good thing. He threw the ball to the receivers. He carried. At times, he had to run out of the pocket. He did that. But he had the first interception of his Steelers career. But he threw for 245 yards. That's the most of a 3-game start as a starter. I'm impressed by how he held up. He looks better in Pittsburgh than he looked in Chicago, if that makes sense to you. Now, for the Chargers, the run defense held Chargers running back J.K. Dobbins to an average of 1.5 yards per attempt. That's pretty good. He entered the game averaging 5.8 yards per carry. The Steelers played like Mean Joe Green. In fact, some people thought they saw Mean Joe Green playing defense. I'm impressed with what the Steelers did. Next at the Colts, the Chargers, touchdown. Justin Herbert is going to miss some times because he got injured. And obviously, he has a plantar fasciitis injury in his right foot. That can be very painful, but they'll get things figured out. But they only fall to 2-1, the Chargers. Offensive outside linebacker Joey Bosa, offensive tackle Joe Alt, and offensive tackle Rashawn Slater. They're injured as well as Herbert. That was a tough game for the Chargers. I thought they were going to go in there and get a win, but the Steelers had other thoughts. Next game, the Chiefs. Well, that's my story. I'm sticking with it. I got to take it to Green Bay Packers 30 in Tennessee 14. Yeah, that was a beat down. Green Bay looks really good. They lost that game down in Brazil to Philadelphia. But Malik Willis, you want to pass it, pass it. A week after coach Matt LaFleur limited Willis to 5 first-half passes attempts and 14 overall for 122 yards. He trusted Willis to throw early and often. In the opening drive, forced the Titans to respect the passing game. Willis threw 30-yard completions to both Jaden Reed and Christian Watson. Willis also topped last week's passing yards in the first half, 158, going 9 of 11. You got to give your quarterback a chance to throw the football. If you do that, he's going to get his rhythm. Once you get rhythm, your players start to trust you. And I'm impressed by the way they won that game. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. The Packers opening day roster, if not for injuries to A.J. Dillon and Marshawn Lloyd, now as Josh Jacobs, the backup. Wilson keeps making big plays and taking screen passes for 30 yards for a touchdown in the third quarter. He had 85 yards from scrimmage on 14 touches. That's good. Next game at the Vikings, that may not be so good. That defense for the Vikings is legit. The Titans, what do you say about the Titans? They're just not a good football team. They got to fix a lot on defense. The Titans struggle to protect the quarterback's assets, especially on third down. The Packers got 2 big sacks for a forced fumble. I got to say, the NFL needs asset protection. Maybe I'll do a commercial with Big C Sports in the RDC team for NFL football. You need asset protection. Well, at the same time, that's my story. I'm sticking with it. Next game at the Dolphins. The New York Jets, 23. New England 3. We had that last week. And, of course, touchdown. Aaron Rodgers looked great. Well, that's my story. I'm sticking with it. I'll get into college football tomorrow because NFL football is so fantastic. It's super fantastic. What is it called, Big C? I said NFL football is super fantastic. Man, lightning strike. It's super fantastic. That's my story. And I'm sticking with it. Well, as I always tell you on every Big C Sports podcast, if you're going to drink, don't drive. If you're going to drive, don't drink. Because mothers against drunk drivers are mad. And fathers against drunk drivers are mad. It's one of the easiest things not to do. You can walk it off, you can sleep it off, but don't let someone you love get behind the wheel of a car and start drinking and driving it. The life you save may be your own. If someone starts to drink and drive, you got to say, excuse me, are you out of your fucking mind? Don't drink and drive. Don't drink and drive. If you love somebody, the life you save may be your own or someone you love. That's my story, and I'm taking with it. As my beautiful mother always says, there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. No man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that crap. In fact, if you know anybody going through that crap, you need more LEADER in your life. LEADER is an acronym for love is the answer. Because if someone loves you, they don't hit you. Only hit you because they may be mad. Call 911. If someone loves you, they don't choke you. Only choke you because they may be mad. Pick up the phone. Call 911. If someone loves you, they don't choke you out. Only choke you out because it made me mad. Pick up the phone, call 911. No man, woman, or child should ever have to deal with that crap on their own. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Well, as you know, I love paying homage to my beautiful family legacy. On my mother's side, my great-grandparents, mama and pop, beautiful, loving, kind people, always making sure lots of love in the family and lots of food in the belly. In fact, as young boys coming out of that yard from playing, always going to that kitchen, right to the kitchen, saying, great grandma, I'm hungry, I want some ribs. She said, boys, go wash your hands and you can have some ribs. I don't have time to wash my hands. I want some ribs now. She said, you wash your hands in this house and you can have some ribs. We said, okay, great grandma, and can we have some collard greens too? She said, yeah, wash your hands first. Always making sure lots of love in the family, lots of food in the belly. Love her with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. And my beautiful great-grandfather Pop, former military man and former Negro League baseball player, always making the best moonshine in the history of the universe with his church buddies coming out of the bar. Boys, get out of that bar now. Love him with all my heart, my body, and soul. And then my grandparents, Mudden and Hezekiah, they were beautiful, loving, kind people. They were seers. They get off the time and look at a person and tell you a lot about their past, their present, and their future. They still help me to this day. And then I can always depend on my mama. the most beautiful mama in the history of the universe. Started an entire program, a food program, and also coached an all-boys and Little League baseball team to the championship of the universe. Always saying rise and shine. The best person I ever met in my life. Dear mama, you hear my praise. I'm always praising, and I always rise and shine. You know I deserve it. I deserve everything I'm praying for. Mama, I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. The best person I ever met in my life. On my father's side, my grandparents, Albert and Alberta Curry, they were pastors. They had 3 churches. They owned 2 gas stations in Oakland and also 40 acres of land. The homestead act gave white Americans 160 acres of land, 4 times as much. But they still were able to rise and shine. I remember being 8 years old, walking through the hallway at about 10 o'clock at night in Oakland. I felt someone touch me in my forehead. She said, "What are you doing, young man? Going to get some cookies?" I said, "What are you doing, Grandma? It's 10 o'clock at night. You normally go to bed at 8:30. She said, "What are you doing, young man? Going to get some cookies?" I said, "Cookies are baby crap to what I'm doing, Grandma. I'm going to get my reparations." But a couple of cookies wouldn't hurt. It's been a long wait. She said, "There's something about your voice. I love hearing you speak." And now Big C Sports Podcast is streaming on 29 podcast applications and also streaming on 4 TV platforms. I love them with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. And then my beautiful father, former United States Air Force fighter pilot, chief mechanic, always making sure that planes can fly high so we can all stay safe at night. Always saying, develop your mind to its highest extent. I love my dad with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. And then my beautiful brother Todd with that bombastic voice. Sound like thunder and lightning when Todd would speak. A voracious reader. Always saying go forward and don't look back because you don't have much backside after all. He said, it's a small backside after all. I said, I love my backside, Todd. He said, you need to do more squats. So I started to do more squats so my backside can get bigger. I'm trying to make my backside bigger. So that's why I'm doing more squats. Todd and I laughed about so many things. We love Malcolm X, but one of our favorite movies was Pulp Fiction. It reminds me of every football season. It had Sam Jackson, Ben Rames, John Travolta, and Bruce Willis. Before the big fight, Ben Rames said, "Bruce, sit your butt down here. Remember, take this money. Your butt goes down in the 5th round. See that flip?" He said, "Okay, my butt goes down in the 5th round." Eddie told him, "That's stinging sensation you're feeling? Well, that's just pride flipping with you." And he said what a lot of football players say to each other. He said, "Blood pride." That pride only hurts. It never helps. It says football's filled with a lot of unrealistic, muddly bluckers who think their butt gets better in time like fine wine, but it don't. In terms of vinegar, then it do. One of these days you're going to thank Uncle Marsalis when you're chilling in the Caribbean. You're going to say Uncle Marsalis is right. We know that Bruce did not take the dive, and he lost his LA privileges. I love Todd with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. And then my beautiful daughter, Daisy, the most beautiful daughter in the history of the universe. College graduate, 2 degrees with honors in 3.5 years from a major university. And Daisy, I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. Always trust God. Isaiah 54:17, that no weapon formed against you will prosper. And Daisy set up the very first interview for Big C Sports Podcast back in the day at Salem Media. It became the first time in the history of the United States that NFL Monday Night Football started broadcasting live on the Wall Street Business Network. They had never done that before. They would normally go to ESPN, but because of 2 black men in the crew, they started doing their thing at Salem Media, the Wall Street Business Network. Daisy set up that interview. Daisy also scored 6 goals in a soccer game. Left foot, and she's a right-footed kicker. It was Daisy for the kick, Daisy for the goal, 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 goal. An ambidextrous kicker. And she did it, and the team won the game. Daisy, you could always win the game. Always trust God. Isaiah 54:17. I pray that no weapon formed against you will prosper. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. Then my beautiful, handsome son, Malcolm, the most handsome son in the history of the universe. College graduate, very smart, every night a good man. You can be anything you want to be, Malcolm. Always trust God. Isaiah 54:17. I pray that no weapon formed against you will prosper. You can do anything you want to be. In fact, Malcolm helped me save trees. I used to always get newspapers to look up stats on players and teams for a Big C Sports Podcast. And one day Malcolm said, "Dad, why don't you just Google it?" And the light bulb went off. I've been Googling ever since. One day Malcolm said, "Dad, you want to see Big C Sports on TV?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Pick up the remote, aim it at the TV, and say play Big C Sports. You'll see your show come up." That's before it was even on the air. Shortly after that, it's streaming on 4 TV platforms Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Malcolm, always trust God. You can be anything you want to be. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. And then Big C, with all that wealth and knowledge over the years, let my great-grandparents come out of that barn with their church buddies, always saying, you got to believe, you got to believe, you got to believe. Say, let's get ready to rumble. I love to say welcome to the show. As we nominated Big C Sports Podcast, I have no scripts. I have no three-way teleprompters. I have no producer in my ear. All I have was this gland in the brain called the pineal gland. The ancients called it the third eye. They say that's how you talk to God. And that's why I scream so loud, because I want God to hear. God, you hear my praise. You hear my praise, my praise, my praise. I deserve it now, God. Do it now. I love you with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. I always end every show by paying homage to the late Muhammad Ali. But back in the day, there's a man known by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He's known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, you float like a butterfly, and you sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble. He said, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Ali said, I'm so pretty, I can't possibly be beat. And every time I listen to Big C Sports, I want to champion reparations now, reparations forever. And then I float like a butterfly, and I sting like a bee. There was no fighter greater than Muhammad Ali. Now I end today's show. As I always do, I pay homage to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and President Abraham Lincoln. They're telling our presidential candidates to do this right now. Do it now. What do they say to do, Big C? They say reparations now, reparations forever. Say it again. Sign reparations now, sign reparations forever. Say it with all your heart, mind, body, and soul. Sign reparations now, sign reparations forever. I thank you. I appreciate you. And you have a super, fantastic day.
Point of view on pro sports game analysis? Then tune in to Big C Sports Podcast on iHeartRadio. Get real sports talk worldwide. Miss a live episode? Replay it on demand on the iHeartRadio app. Join Big C, former NFL player and longtime award-winning radio broadcaster, covering all sports including NFL, NBA, MLB, UFC, NCAA, USL, and more. Tune in live or on demand on iHeartRadio Podcast today.